So it has gotten to this point where some of you actually go this far just because of love. Now meet Shayla. She was a brilliant scientist who works at a pharmaceutical company. She's also married to this man called Paul, who was also kind of in the medical field, and everything seemed to be going well for them. But you see, somewhere along the line, while working at this company, Shayla met this guy named Nelson, a co-worker. She found Nelson more attractive than her own husband and started making moves on him. She laughed at the most boring thing he said, joked around with him, and always found an excuse to be near him. Always. And over time, Nelson started falling for her. This secret tension between them lasted for a while, and eventually, the two of them started a relationship. At first, things between them went smoothly, but after a while, the whole relationship started to crumble, and the main reason was Sheila herself. She became obsessive, controlling, and started acting off. Her behavior grew unstable by the day, and when Nelson had had enough, he did what any reasonable guy would do. He broke up with her. Not long after that, he began dating someone else, another co-worker called Anna. When Sheila found out, she wasn't just hurt, she was furious, jealous, and decided to take revenge. So one day, Anna was at home, but unknown to her, someone was watching her, and that someone was Sheila. Driven by rage and jealousy, Sheila waited until she was sure Anna was alone. Then she forced her way into the house and attacked her. Anna tried to fight her off, but she stood no chance against Sheila, who had come armed with a knife. Sheila stabbed her multiple times and eventually she killed her. After killing her, Sheila called the police herself, pretending to be a random passerby who just stumbled across the scene. Then she left. Now, because she didn't give the exact location of the scene, it took the police some time to trace where the call came from, and by the time they arrived at Anna's apartment, Sheila was long gone. They were able to identify two different blood samples on the scene, but that was it. They had no other evidence, no solid leads, and as a result, the case went cold. Sheila went back to her normal life and even mourned Anna's death, all the while knowing she was the one responsible. But as the saying goes, karma doesn't sleep, because about a year later, Sheila tried to buy again. This time, it was her own husband Paul. On that day, she told him they should try out a bondage game that couples play, and he agreed. She blindfolded him, handcuffed him to a chair, and instead of doing anything romantic, she stabbed him twice. Paul was bleeding and begging for help, but Sheila didn't care. She cleaned up the scene, then called Nelson, yes, that same Nelson, and invited him over for dinner like everything was normal. After the dinner, she returned to Paul and drove him to the hospital. But on the way there, she pulled over in a dark parking lot and stabbed him a third time, so that by the time she reached the hospital, Paul would already be gone and she would probably say he was attacked by someone. But somehow, Paul survived. Despite everything, he made it, and when he recovered, he testified against his darling wife. The story blew up, it made headlines, and investigators began to suspect that maybe Sheila had a hand in her co-worker's death. So, they reopened Anna's case and ran a voice analysis, comparing Sheila's voice to the caller that night, and it was a match. They even ran another test comparing the blood sample found at the crime scene with Sheila's, and again it was a match. That was when the world realized that this brilliant smart scientist was actually a secret killer whose only motive for killing was love. So Sheila was arrested immediately, and in court she was found guilty and sentenced to 25 years in prison for attempting to unalive her husband and 50 years in prison for unaliving her co-worker Anna. When she is done serving the 25 years, that's when her 50-year sentence will begin.